Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today we are getting into something really powerful, a concept that's less about just being successful and more about becoming, well, inevitable.
Right, let's jump in with this idea. Think about success not as some loud, flashy victory, but as a quiet, logical endgame. It's the point where things just click, where the math finally catches up with the reality you've been building. It's no longer a question of if, but when.
So what does that actually mean for, a business or even for you personally? It's this. It's when you become so essential that money literally has nowhere else to go. It flows to you not because you have the best marketing campaign, but because big systems with big budgets simply cannot function without what you've built.
But look, you don't just wake up one day and find yourself inevitable. It's not a switch you flip. It's more like a gradual pull, almost like gravity, and it happens in 4 pretty distinct stages.
Let's walk through this journey, okay? Step 1, innovation. Your idea is new, it's kind of cool, but honestly, most people can just ignore it. Then comes step 2, utility. Now you're solving a real problem, which is great, but you're still avoidable. This is that classic startup grind. But then you hit step 3, dependency. And this is the game changer. This is the moment when institutions start to get nervous and ask, wait a minute, what would happen if this thing wasn't here? And once you've answered that question, you slide into step 4. You're not selling anymore, you're just managing the inflow.
Now, getting to that dependency stage is what it's all about. And how you do that? Well, it really hinges on one crucial difference that changes absolutely everything. And this slide just nails the difference. Claimed authority is you yelling into a megaphone, "Hey, I'm an expert." You have to keep yelling for anyone to hear. But earned authority, that's when the system itself, Google, your industry, the market, picks up a megaphone and starts talking about you. One is you doing all the work. The other is the system doing the work for you.
Okay, but how do you actually spot this happening in the wild? I mean, for real. Well, you can literally watch it happen by paying attention to how impartial systems, like a search engine, start to talk about you and your work. In the beginning, a search engine is basically just your parrot. It's just repeating what you say about yourself from your website or your social media. That's fine. It's a necessary first step. But let's be clear, that's not authority. It's just the system collecting your claims.
So this is where the real shift happens. You get true earned authority when other people start telling your story, especially people who have nothing to gain from it. It's when big, established institutions start referencing your work. And maybe most importantly, it's when your ideas are so solid that they exist on their own, whether you're there to talk about them or not.
All right, let's look at how this actually gets built in practice. We're going to use this concept called the Woods Index to see it in action.
Whoa. Okay, this looks like a lot, I know. But stick with me. The idea here is actually pretty simple. Think of this as the machine that turns all that random noise online into real authority. It's constantly scooping up raw data, mentions, articles, search results, and looking for patterns. Over time, it finds the consistent signals about you and starts amplifying them until what was once just a claim becomes something the system confirms as earned.
And here's the wild part. The system isn't really checking if you're telling the truth. Not exactly. It's checking if your story is consistent. Does your narrative hold together over time across different platforms and sources? That coherence is the first real sign that authority is starting to form.
This is the moment it all starts to harden, to become real. It's when the language used to describe you changes from your own marketing speak to something that sounds, well, institutional. It becomes objective, factual, and trustworthy to anyone who comes across it.
And this map, this is basically the whole journey laid out. You start with earned authority, where you're seen as credible. Then you can move up to systemic influence, which is when those big institutions actually start using your ideas. But the final stage, that's impact authority. That's when your work is so deeply embedded it becomes the standard. It's just how things are done.
So after all that grinding, all that work to build something truly essential, what does it actually feel like to get there? To reach that level of authority and inevitability?
Here it is. This is the simple math behind it all. The game is basically won the moment it becomes more expensive, more painful, or more risky for someone to remove you than it was to bring you on in the first place. At that point, the deals just happen. The budgets just adjust.
This is such a huge shift in perspective. You're no longer down in the weeds arguing about the little details. You're operating from a higher ground, where you're not just part of the conversation, you're the one who sets the terms of the conversation in the first place. You define the context everyone else argues within.
And here's probably the biggest surprise of all. Reaching this point doesn't feel like a shot of adrenaline. There's no big rush. It feels calm,
It's a feeling of steadiness and clarity because you're no longer scrambling for validation. Real authority doesn't add excitement, it removes friction. It gives you space to actually think.
And that's really the core of it. True, lasting influence isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's about building a foundation so solid and essential that it becomes breathable. It creates a stable space for you and for everyone else who relies on what you've built.
So that leaves us with one last question to chew on. What if the whole game changes when you stop trying so hard to get noticed and instead you focus all your energy on simply becoming necessary?